On the far eastern side of the Himalayan plateau, we have a tribal cultural group called the Naxi Cultural Group. and They are very much related with Bun, and they are also very much related as some kind of tribal cousin to Tibetans. In the Naxi language, they refer to Tibetans as uncle, the uncle family, uncle side of the family. So there's a strong relationship. Now, when it comes to art, we have several study topics that are important for Naxi art. And the reason they're important is because they do overlap with some Tibetan and Himalayan art, and also some Chinese Buddhist art. So there's overlap. Now, in terms of study topics, we have unique symbols and animal imagery. Now, the animal imagery is probably the far easier to spot right away, because many of these scrollwork paintings of the Naxi people contain the four animals that you would find typically on a Bumpo prayer flag or lungta. And animals such as the snow lion, the dragon, the tiger, and then the white yak. Now the tiger and the white yak are not typical of the Buddhists necessarily. There are other animals, but remember that the lungta originates in the Tibetan regions and the Tibetan northeast, in the Qinghai and Gansu areas, where the creating of block print images of animals on paper and then throwing them in the air for good luck. This goes back a very long time. Predates Buddhism in the Himalayan regions. So the animals are important, and always looking for that white yak. If you see a white yak in a painting, in a Himalayan or Tibetan or Naxi painting, then you can be 99% assured that it is a Bun subject, Bun religious subject. So there's unique symbolism such as the arrow, and the spindle is what we find in Tibetan culture, and more often with Naxi culture we find the arrow and then the shang, the symbol for making noise, a single symbol. Often the arrow will represent the male, and then in Tibetan culture the spindle represents the female, but I believe that the shang represents the female in Naxi culture. So the majority of art that we run into really falls into three types. There's really only three types that people really look at, and it's figurative painting, and the figurative painting is again primarily Bun subjects. It's the founder of Bun, Tompa Shenrap. It's the four transcendent lords. It's a Werma Ninya. It's some wrathful deities. It's sometimes some Naga figures, or Naga is an Indian term, so we really have to say in Tibetan Lu, serpent spirits, and I'm not familiar with the Naxi word for serpent spirit. So in terms of the three types of art, we have the figurative painting, and what we're interested in is primarily the Bun, or Buddhist, if we can find some Buddhist Naxi art. Then there's some tribal subjects for the figurative painting as well. But figurative painting is number one. Death scrolls is number two, and then manuscript pages is number three. And these are all illuminated and illustrated manuscript pages. One of the best collections in the world outside of China and Yunnan is Library of Congress. I think after the Library of Congress for death scrolls, the best collection outside of China is probably the New York City Library. And yes, that is a very strange relationship. But there was a librarian there who collected them for the New York City Library and had a very, very deep and profound interest in the subject. So these are the three subjects: figurative painting, primarily Bun, death scrolls. Now, death scrolls are these very long scrolls which are all illuminated, illustrated, and they're actually placed on the coffin of the deceased person in Yunnan Province, and they describe the process of death and rebirth. And it is very much from a Bun and a tribal perspective, indigenous perspective. And then, of course, manuscripts. And the manuscripts are actually they're kind of like pictographs. It's an illustrated language, not an alphabet language or a character-based language. It's actually an illustrated picture language. So these are the three main subjects for Naxi art. We only have a small collection of examples and images on the HAR website, but they do give quite a bit of insight into the relationship between Naxi and Bun and perhaps Buddhism, and also a little bit China, and also to the south, the southern peoples of Southeast Asia. So you can press the like button, you can subscribe, you can join HAR on Patreon, and you can make a donation directly on the homepage of Himalayan Art Resources.